Discovery. Today we have with us Vatsal Tolasaria, the co-founder of Indian Tennis Daily, ITD, a platform that's solely covering Indian tennis and making sure that nothing from Indian tennis is being missed out on. Thank you for joining us today, Vatsal.
Thanks, Akshata. Thanks a lot for having me and looking forward to speaking about ITD. And kudos on starting Sports Khabri as well. I think it's a really amazing platform. It ensures that voices from sports outside of cricket are being heard in India, which is super important. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Vatsal. So, Vatsal, I'll start from the beginning. How did you guys think of starting ITD? Tell us about the inception story.
So, as you know, tennis is neglected in India. Mainstream media ignores tennis. I wouldn't say ignores tennis, but I would say that maybe because they have like their own reasons, maybe it does not generate enough eyeballs. So, we thought that there should be a platform that speaks about the achievements of our players who are toiling day in and day out and making it in a global sport such as tennis. I think tennis after football is the sport that is played by the most number of countries. So to be able to make inroads and produce results on an international level in the sport is not easy. So the inception story actually is a little interesting. So it started when I was in my third year in college. And I think Yuki Bhamri at the time, he had a top 100 singles win. He beat a player who was ranked top 100. And that should have been massive news because it's not every day that an Indian tennis player beats a top 100 player, right? But I think the next morning in the newspaper, all they wrote about was, I think, India beating Bangladesh in some random bilateral series. And there was no single, even like a small paragraph about Yuki's win, right? And I got super pissed. I was like, this is not how it should work because people like me, or even people who are younger than me, who are like 10, 12, 15, 20, they would hear about Indian players beating someone in either, be it any sport, cricket, tennis, football, and then that is how they would get inspired. And that is how they would say that, yeah, even I want to do this someday. Mom or dad, please put me into tennis, put me into badminton or something. But if you're not talking about it, if the media is not talking about it, the sport is not going to progress. So out of that anger, if you can call it that, I started a Facebook page. That it was a very humble start. So what I would do is I used to follow tennis anyway, and Indian tennis players in particular. So I would just start posting results of players playing in tournaments around the world because I felt like even from like a tennis point of view, the results were really scattered. There was no one platform that would tell you everything you needed to know about the sport. So even if you wanted to follow, it was very difficult because there's an ITF website, there's an ATP website, there's a WTA website. There are different sources of information. So I thought putting all of that under one roof would be helpful. And then there were other people also doing similar things, but then like they were doing it under their personal handles. And then the next idea that we had was to create a synergy, like get all of these people under one roof and ensure that the efforts are multiplying as opposed to getting divided. And now we have like a 85 member volunteering team from over 25, 30 different countries in the world, and all of us have the same passion and the same goal of making tennis as popular as it can be in India, and to provide the right platform to our players for their results and their hard work to be seen and appreciated.
Vatsal, can you talk to us about some of the struggles in the beginning? Because as you said that, collecting information is not easy. You have to visit various websites. And even on those websites, at the end of the match, you just find the match results, right? You don't get to know how the player actually performed in that particular match or the tournament. So, in situations such as this, to gather information, to make sure that you're putting something out there which is of interest to people, not just a limited score at the end of the match. What was that like? And how were you keeping tabs on matches that, upcoming yahan pe ye ho raha hai, there's another match, day after, maintaining a calendar or making sure that you're not missing out on anything?
Right. So about the first part, I would say that there are numerous ways to do it. One is there are live streams available where you can watch the match and actually understand how the player is playing. And then you also have information about the opponent. Like, for example, a player is playing an opponent who's been doing really well recently, then even if you are not able to watch the match, based on the pattern of the scoring, you can understand how the match would have gone. And using that sort of information, you can make inferences, and then you can talk about the magnitude of the win, or even if it's a loss, and if it's a close loss and you've lost to a player who's been on fire, you can say that, yeah, this player has been on the upward trajectory. So yeah, those are some ways that you can use to actually understand how the match went in intricate details. Yeah, so I think that is something that we've inculcated in an operational model. So what we do is at the start of every week, so tennis works in on a weekly basis, right? Every week you have a different set of tournaments. So at the start of every week, we check at every level, like starting from the Grand Slams, ATP, WTA, and then the ATP Challengers, and then the ITF Futures. We go through entry lists of each of these tournaments to see where Indians are participating, and then we make like a combined list of all the players who are going to be representing the country in that particular week. And then we also publish that on our social channels, saying that, yeah, for example, Ankita Rena is supposed to play in the Wimbledon qualifying, whereas in the same week there are like three players who are going to be playing an ITF Futures in Thailand. So we have this model wherein we publish the entire information about who's going to be playing where, because those that information is available online. It's just that it's scattered, like I mentioned before. So we just put it together so that it becomes easier for people to follow who's playing where, both for the fans and I would say also for journalists around India who use our platform to actually understand who's playing where, so that they it becomes easier for them to keep track, because otherwise everyone has to do the same work, which is like a repetition or a duplication of effort. So we just make it easier by putting it on our platform.
And how do you guys divide work amidst yourselves? Because as you said that, it's a platform being run by volunteers.
Right.
And I would also like to add it here that, you're not doing this for making money. It's a passion project for all of you. And that's what's driving ITD, right? So how are you dividing work? How are you making sure that there is no duplicity? Because when there are so many people, there are chances that, three, four people pick up the same story. So tell us about the planning and the execution if you can.
Right. So the weekly schedule that I just mentioned, we divide that by tournament category usually. So we have out of the 85 core volunteer members, we have around 15 core members who are responsible for the day-to-day operations that manage the website, the social media. So basically, we say that this person is going to take care of, say, the Grand Slam for this particular week, and the other person is going to take care of the ATP Challengers, and so on. And yeah, the tough part is to get people motivated to do it because there's no money involved. But I feel like that I've been really lucky. Like we've as an organization, we've been really lucky to have people who are super passionate, and they really care about the sport and don't really care about result or the outcome it's going to generate for them personally, right? And I would also like to take this opportunity to name the co-founders who started this initiative, so I can just introduce them one by one. So the first one would be Joel, who used to run this account on Twitter called Indian Tennis Fan, which has been running, in fact, like since even before ITD started. So we decided to join forces and make it into one unit, which was amazing. And then we have Vishnu, who works for Google in Zurich. We have Sufyan, who was actually a gold medalist at Manipal Medical School, and now he's studying in the US. Then we have Vandana, who's working in civil engineering in the Middle East. Then we have Shashank, who's a software engineer based in Agra. And we have Rishabh, who's also a software engineer based in Noida. So these are the people who are the part of the founding team, and they are the ones, behind the vision and the progress of the initiative. And yeah, like I said, we've been really lucky. And we've also been really selective. Like we've only gotten people who have real passion for the sport, because obviously there's not going to be any monetary reward or outcome for them. But uh, the benefits that you get from ITD is that you get to build relationships with the player. Like you, like for example, like most of us have met a lot of these Indian players and we are friends with them. So that obviously for a fan that's paramount, right? Like if you're able to interact with and be friends with players, that's the best reward you can get, and it's even better than money. So I think, yeah, that's been like a secondary or a second order outcome which has been keeping people going.
And you guys are only talking about Indian tennis, not covering any other international athletes or countries' tennis. Was there any time over the years where you thought of maybe reconsidering this decision?
Yeah, so the thing is, there are a lot of platforms who are doing what you just mentioned, like covering global tennis or covering sports from an Indian standpoint overall. But I and like my entire team also felt that like Indian tennis itself has so much to talk about that you could just focus on that and focus on that niche segment and really go in depth. I mean, we to be honest, we had ideas of expanding into global tennis, but then it would require a lot more bandwidth than we currently have. because all of us have full-time jobs, and we just find like an hour or two out of our days to contribute to this initiative. But if we were to expand into global tennis or other sports or something like that, we would probably need a full bandwidth, and then it had to become like a proper startup where you quit your jobs and just solely focus on this particular initiative, which I think we seriously considered at one point in time, but then like it didn't feel worth enough for the risk. But and also like that would have diverted our focus from Indian tennis, and the thing that we are truly passionate about is Indian tennis. So I would say that if we probably ventured into other sports or global tennis, then the passion would have dwindled, and maybe the initiative would not be of the same quality as it is now. So yeah, I mean, no regrets there. I think what we're doing is still really close to our hearts, and we would like to keep it this way.
What's the one thing that is often asked to tennis fans or people who work in tennis is that why is it that we still do not have star tennis players, especially in singles tennis? I remember Yuki Bamri back in the day, he won the Junior Australian Open, if I'm not wrong. But after that, things could not really go to the next stage after that. In doubles, we have, of course, done well. But even there, we are not able to capitalize on the success of the athletes there and create more maybe awareness in the Indian market. Rohan Bopanna's matches are often not shown. Sania Mirza's last Grand Slam, to watch that, tell people that something like this is going to happen. The tournament she played in UAE, that was also not really broadcasted, right? And these are star players. So I know I'm like sort of mixing points here and there in this case, but just what do you think is the problem with Indian tennis?
Right. So I will just quickly address the broadcast problem first, and then go into the bigger problem, which would take more time. So it's easier to get this out of the way. So the broadcast bit is actually contract based. So the ATP or the WTA would typically have a contract with broadcasters in different countries. And until like 3 or 4 years back, they had a contract with Sony where like all the ATP tour events would be telecasted on Sony. But then I think that contract ended, and maybe because it wasn't getting enough viewership. So having said that, so to expect Sony or someone to just one-off broadcast Sanya's last tournament or like Rohan's matches is something that is not possible. But yeah, I agree that the tennis organizations like ATP and WTA, they should have like at least an online streaming service that people can utilize to watch the matches. They do, in fact, like ATP has the tennis TV and WTA has WTA TV, but their pricings are way off, of the level that it should be at for the Indian market. We actually had conversations with Tennis TV. We also partnered with them for some initiatives, but at the same time, we took the opportunity to speak about this issue. Even Bopanna has spoken about this issue. We spoke about this issue with Bopanna as well. But Tennis TV is somehow like reluctant to change their global pricing model. So they want to have one price for the whole world, which does not make sense. So because of the currency, like Indian currency being not as strong as the US dollar or the pound, it becomes really difficult for Indian viewers rather to pay that kind of money, because you're getting Prime subscriptions, Netflix subscriptions for like 1/10 the price, and ultimately Tennis TV is competing with those streaming platforms. But yeah, I mean that's a decision that the Tennis TV organization has taken. Hopefully they'll change that in the future. I don't know what the reason is behind the global pricing model, but yeah, that's about the broadcasting issue. I hope that changes soon, and so that a lot of more viewers who want to watch tennis can actually watch tennis in India. The Grand Slams are still safe. Like all the four Grand Slams are telecasted because they're really popular tournaments that have a lot of tradition. So the viewership for Grand Slams would never go down, regardless of the big three going away or whatever. I feel so that those tournaments are safe, but I feel like yeah, there's a lot that can be done for the other tournaments because they deserve to be telecasted, and people deserve to be seeing those tournaments. And then coming to your bigger question, which is like why we don't have single stars from the country, I think that there are a multitude of reasons, but I think the major reason is that we don't have a system in place to churn out players every year or every 2 years or every 3 years. Like there's not a proper pipeline to say that yeah, this is our development program. This is how an under 12 player should be progressing to the next level and then to the next level. Whatever single stars we've had, like name Sanya, Somdev, Yuki, Prajnesh, all of them have succeeded despite the system. rather than because of the system. They have had things going for them personally with zero support from the federation. So, for example, Somdev could really do well because he went to the US college tennis, and that system really evolved him into the player that he was. Yuki and Sanya, I would say that they were so talented that they probably would have been, even higher ranked than they were if the federation supported them and from a young age, and they told them, yeah, these are the right things to do. Like Yuki's body could not take the rigor of pro tennis, but he should have been told that when he was 11 or 10, and he should have worked on it then. But because there was no system in place, those players could not achieve their full potential. Sanya was 27 in the world, which is crazy, but I feel that she could have been much higher. She had to give up singles much earlier than a typical player would because of injuries. And if the federation had a system in place to say that, yeah, this is how your development should go in terms of physical development, mental development, technical development, then things would have been better. All those successful countries that are doing well, Canada, France, Australia, US, they have a proper national training center with coaches that know about tennis, and they have a proper system in place to take one player from one level to the next, which is lacking in India. And obviously, there are some supporting factors as well. I would say one, there's no tennis culture, like you mentioned, like people don't get to watch tennis, so like, and there's a club culture mostly, like where which restricts people from taking up the sport. So it's a numbers game at the end of the day, right? Like the more number of people who play a sport, there are more chances of the number of players excelling in that sport. So the reason why we have so many good cricketers is because everyone wants to play cricket. Everyone plays badminton, so there we have badminton players coming up. And so with tennis, like there's a huge barrier to entry, I would say. Like even in my personal case, like I really wanted to play tennis, but my mom and my dad had to really pull some strings to get me into a club, because a, it's expensive, b, it's very exclusive. Even if you have the money to play, there are chances that you would not be allowed. I mean, it may not be true for all cities, but at least in Calcutta it's like that. That is another reason. And then the lack of tournaments, I would say. India does not have a lot of pro tournaments, and the reason you see Europeans and American tennis players doing really well is because they have a lot of tournaments at home, which has a lot of advantages. A, you are familiar to the conditions, the weather, the courts. B, you don't have to spend money to travel. So I would give the example of Ben Shelton, who's the 32nd seed at Wimbledon this year. So he actually was top 100 in the world without stepping out of America. How crazy is that? And the first tournament that he played outside of America was the Australian Open this year, and he made the quarters. So that has a huge benefit in terms of being comfortable. And because tennis is so financially intensive, it adds that extra bit of pressure if you're taking loans, or if you see as a kid that your parents are going here and there to get every bit of financial resource that they can get to help you play that one extra tournament. So imagine a 16-year-old having that kind of pressure to go to another country and play a tournament and be expected to do well. So I feel like that is another factor. Obviously, like one more factor is the Indian currency. Tennis is expensive. Best facilities are in Europe, America, and you need to pay in euros and dollars. So only ones who have deep pockets would be able to sustain that kind of expenses for years, because you can't become a tennis player in 1 year. You have to spend that kind of money over like 150K, $1,000 every year to actually get to that level. So again, like Prajnesh Guneswaran, who was top 75 in the world recently, he fortunately comes from a background that can help him, sustain that kind of expenses without any sort of income. So that is why that was like an odd one out in terms of an outlier, being an outlier, to say that yeah, I can do that and I will get the result. But then like if you want a lot of players, you can't expect everyone to be spending so much money, right? So yeah, I mean, those are a few factors. There are ways to work around it, but we just need people who in the federation, most importantly, because those people have the power to make changes. Even our players are fed up. That can be a part of another conversation, but yeah, those are largely the reasons why we don't have single stars.
What's else, sponsorships also play a very important role in a sport like tennis. In other countries, sponsors identify young talent also at a very early stage in their career. Do we Are we seeing something like this happening in India now? Have things improved?
In India, specifically, I don't think that's happening because I don't think sponsors or like potential companies who have CSR programs for sports, they think of tennis as one of their target sports. Like even the Olympics Gold Quest initiative that is there, they don't have tennis on their official roster. But yeah, at a global level, it happens. So Manas Dhamne, I don't know if you've heard of him. He is one of our most promising juniors. He won the Eddie Hur, I think, under 12 competition, and he was spotted by IMG. And IMG took him under their wings, and now he's training under Ricardo Piatti, who is Yannick Sinner's ex-coach. So, and the results are there to be seen. Like he is just 15, and he's already made the 80, made an ATP point. He made the quarterfinals of an ITF Futures event, which is extremely difficult to do as like a 15-year-old because it's really competitive and physical. So he's going in the right direction. But yeah, to answer your question, in India there are no such programs or initiatives. Whatever sponsorships happen, they happen at an ad hoc level. Like you would, typically approach a sponsor. They would say, "What player are you talking about?" They would maybe have a look at their game, have a conversation with the player, and if they think they have potential, they will help in some shape or form, but there's no structured system in place to be able to do that. I think there was one that was being started by Mahesh Bhupati in 2008, but then like I think it was called Mission Grand Slam Champion 2018, which the goal was to it was in collaboration with Apollo Tires, and like the goal was to have a singles Grand Slam champion from India by the year 2018. But I think it fell apart after the global recession in 2008, and it never really went back to its original path. But we got one good player out of it, Sumit Nagal. He was part of that program, and even though the program fell apart, Bhupati said that, yeah, I mean, I can personally fund one player. I mean, I don't have the kind of money as Apollo does, but I feel that Sumit is really talented, and he can really make it to the next level. I mean, he was right in some shape or form. So he sent him to Canada, where he was training under coach Bobby Mahal, I think. And then he also now is based in Germany, so he's also doing well. So if that hadn't happened, maybe we wouldn't have had Sumit either. So you can see that everything that has happened in Indian tennis has been by chance and not by system. So that is something that needs to be changed.
Vatsal, ITD has a loyal community of Indian tennis lovers, and firsthand, you can see the kind of support that they are also willing to give to the sport, or the kind of hopes that they have from the sport. They are also looking for broadcast. They are also looking to know what is happening in the Indian tennis world. So, if, for instance, the federation or there are brands who are looking to, expand to this fan base, they can explore opportunities through ITD or perhaps a similar platform. What do you think is the scope here, and how do you think that content platforms such as yours can help Indian tennis?
So right now, what we do is one, like we have a network of fans right around the world, and because tennis is of such global nature, we try to leverage the network that we have through it could be helping players with accommodation in a particular region. For example, if they're because these players have to pay for their accommodation everywhere they go, right? So uh, that's a huge expense. So we try to find contacts or potential people who could host these players that would help them feel in a home environment and also save money. That is one. Second, we also use our network to find sponsorships for players. So I think there have been a couple of successful cases where we've help players who don't know how to go about sponsorships. So using our expertise in whatever shape or form we have, we try to reach out to potential sponsors and try to get them hooked up with a sponsor, and that's worked in a couple of cases in a positive manner. So we do that as well. Third is we also help players with visa issues if they are facing any, using the voice that we have on social media and also through personal contacts. So we've been able to establish relationships with embassies around the world, Indian embassies around the world. So they help us in a lot of way because they help ease out visa issues. B, like whenever they're playing a tournament, when Indians are playing a tournament in a particular country, they help spread the word in the Indian diaspora in that particular region, and like Indians turn up to support these players. So recently there was one example where Rutuja Bhosle was playing in Tunisia, in Monastir, and one of our like contacts from the Indian embassy in Tunisia spread the word, and like the whole stadium was full, and it was like a home game for Rutuja, and she beat much higher ranked player in the final, and she won the title. And I think she also mentioned that that support gave her the edge, and like it helped her end up in the winning side as opposed to the losing side. And yeah, I mean that was another thing that we did. So these are small things that we try to do in our capacity that we can.
Since you are firsthand watching all of these tennis players, interacting with them, can you tell us where do you see Indian tennis in the next 10 years, considering things how they are right now?
So I would say, like, if I were to be very honest, I feel like it's gonna be a case of like being there being no system, but like there being exceptions. Like for example, I see maybe Sumit cracking the top 100 in the next year or so. I see Yuki being top 10 in doubles very soon, winning Grand Slams along with Saket hopefully as well. I see Manas Dhamne doing really well, maybe being top 50, top 20, who knows. And like you need these kind of success stories to sell tennis as a brand to sponsors, for them to be interested. For uh, the reason why badminton has like so much momentum is because you had some results, and then uh, brands came in, and then there was suddenly everything started looking in the positive direction. So hopefully like some success stories like one of these players would help Indian tennis spur itself into the positive direction. I mean, the pipeline is dry, I would not lie. They're not like, 5, 10, 15 players that you could name and say that, yeah, these players are going to be top 100 or top 200 in the world, as you could do like 5 or 10 years back. The juniors, they're doing well, but then like the game is getting tougher by the year. Like it's getting more physical, so it's getting even more difficult to crack, the upper echelons of the game as it was in the past. The world population is also increasing. I mean, we compare a player who was top 100 in the 1970s to a player who was top 100 now. It's not the same, right? Like the world population was probably like 50% at that time. So being top 100 then should be compared to being top 200 now mathematically. But then even like the fans and the sponsors don't realize that. They are like, okay, if you're not top 100, you're shit, which is not true, right? I mean, at any given day, top two, like a player ranked top 200 can beat a player ranked 20. Yeah, the tennis is such a sport where the margins are really low, and it's very difficult to say that, yeah, beyond this ranking, a player is not good, which is not true. So it's getting tougher, but hopefully, like some of these names will start doing well and put the focus back on the sport, and so that the sponsors can come in and we can have an ecosystem where like brands are willing to put money. So if that is the case, then we can have a lot more tournaments. If we can have more tournaments, we'll have more home players playing in those tournaments. That will result in more positive results, which will get their rankings up, and then there'll be more interest from the sponsors. So it's like a cycle, vicious cycle, I would say, like where the sponsors need results, but to get the results we need sponsors. So it's like a chicken and egg situation, if I can call it that. But hopefully like there has to be a push from one end, so that like things start happening. Like right now, like it's kind of in a state where sponsors are saying that we need results, and there is players are saying that we need sponsors to get the results. So yeah.
And constant support, I think one way where the sponsors go wrong is that they're looking for quick results. They think that they'll invest for a year or two and they'll start seeing the results. It usually takes time to build a sport, especially from the level where Indian tennis is right now. So maybe a long-term support can help both the athletes and the brands and can break that pattern or the vicious cycle that we are stuck in.
Yeah, so I just had one thought. So I also wanted to say that, like, yeah, I mean, long term support is important, but I also feel like the fans can also play a part in this. Like, they can start appreciating results more. Like, ultimately, like, sponsors care about eyeballs, right? And, like, in the head of fans, like, if like for tennis, I see that the benchmark is really high. Like if a player is making it to the quarterfinals of a tournament, they're like, okay, fine, it's just the quarterfinals. It's not like they won the title. But they have to understand that like it's not easy to make the quarterfinal of a tournament, and if more and more people come out of their cricket mindset and start appreciating sports like tennis, just not just tennis, but I'm speaking on behalf of other sports, other non-cricket sports in India, then like once a lot of people start appreciating the results of these players, like brands would see that yeah, these players have a fan following, and ultimately like that is what drives sponsors and brands to invest in a particular player or a sport, right? So if we start appreciating these non-cricket players more, it would go a long way, and that is where I think platforms like yours and ours comes into the picture, because we talk about sports that people don't usually talk about. Uh, so yeah, I mean that would be really important. And like no offense to cricket, but like I mean, cricket is a nice sport. It was my first sport as well, but like it does not require the same level of fitness, like physical fitness to excel, right? I mean, if you look at a top 500 player in tennis and compare it with the fittest cricketer there is in the world, they would literally be at the same level. So yeah, I mean, it takes more effort to produce results in sports like tennis or even football, basketball. But I think like people like quick wins in India. Like we see that yeah, India is one of the biggest teams in the world in cricket. So yeah, we're like yeah, we'll be on the cricket train and cricket bandwagon. But we also need to realize that cricket is played by 10, 15 countries, whereas sports like football, tennis are played by 200 countries. So being top 10 in cricket or being number one in cricket is equivalent to being top 100 or top 200 in tennis. So yeah, I mean that is where the mindset change needs to happen, and it will only happen over time. But with the momentum that cricket has with the IPL and things like that, I don't think there's enough brain space or head space in the mind of viewers to say that yeah, we can fit one more sport into our heads, and we can appreciate it as much as we appreciate cricket. But hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully things will change.
And I think also some more loyalty towards the athletes that have proven themselves. They are doing, like not to forget them, not to forget their matches, keep talking about them. Rohan Bopanna, for that matter, I think, I love his Insta content also. He has some really fun videos with Djokovic
Right.
that I did not see a lot of people share them or talk about them. Sania Mirza also, for that matter, I think she deserved a much, much better farewell than what she got. And I really hope that when Rohan decides to, announce his retirement or whenever he decides to hang the shoes, he is treated much better and he's given the respect that he rightfully deserves. So I think loyalty to at least the people who have proven themselves is also very, very important. I'm sure, like looking back to the journey of ITD so far, it must be very humbling, right, to have helped so many athletes, to build the kind of community, to have so many volunteers on board now. What do you think of your journey? What do you make of it? And where do you see yourself in the next few years?
I think the journey has been really, really fun, and I really appreciate it because it has helped me grow personally as well and professionally. I would say, because like I have learned so much by working with so many different kinds of people. Like interacting with people from different countries on a day-to-day basis is not something that you can do even in your regular job, right? So I feel like it has been a journey of personal growth, and from like an organization standpoint, like I feel like we always knew that the target audience is limited. It's very niche, and I feel like come across now as someone who is the voice of Indian tennis, right? Um, like everyone who even is remotely connected to tennis in India, they would have heard of us and they would appreciate what we do. Like everywhere I go, like as soon as I mention that I'm from Indian Tennis Daily, they go like crazy. They're like, "Oh, it's you!" And then like it feels so good. Like it's kind of a validation for the work that we've done over the years, and it's because of all the people who've come together to make it happen. So it really feels nice to be recognized and to be respected, like more than anything else. And in the future, I would say that like we would obviously, as a baseline, try to continue whatever we are doing, and hopefully like we can keep coming up with new ideas and new ways to support our players, and maybe even grow the community, like multiply it by maybe 3x or 4x, to ensure that we have more helping hands and more ideas that can come into the picture to help the sport and the players as well. And I think like the biggest validation has come from the players itself, including the likes of Bopana, Sanya. Everyone has been really appreciative of whatever we're doing, and they really respect it because they know that there's no one else doing it. So I would like to take this opportunity to share a story that really touched my heart. So there's this Indian tennis player called Shravya Shivani. So she is the South Asian Games gold medalist or silver medalist, I think, but she is around 600 or 700 in the WTA rankings. Not in the top 10 in India, but yeah. So the story goes that I met her in Bangalore a few years back, and she said that she was playing a semi-final match somewhere in Africa, and she was playing the finals at tiebreak. And she said that at 2-all in the tiebreak, she thought to herself that when I see a post from Indian Tennis Daily later on in the day, I want that post to say that Shavya won and not Shavya lost. And that gave her the extra motivation to win. So just shows that all these players need is that extra little motivation, which can come through our support. I mean, if at that time we were super small, and if at that scale, if we could create that sort of impact, imagine if there are bigger organizations, media organizations talking about sports like tennis on a regular basis. That would give even more motivation to players to perform well. But it's unfortunate that a lot of these organizations don't do that. So yeah, I mean, and also like if there are a lot of fans talking about it on social media, that also gives motivation to players to keep performing well. So I feel like as a community of sports lovers in India, we can keep supporting the sport as much as we can to help make a difference that we don't see. Like if I did not have that conversation with her, I would not know this, right? But I'm sure there would be like a lot of other instances like these, which I probably don't know. So yeah, I mean, all we need to do is keep encouraging and not say that this player is bad because just because they had like two or three bad results. We have to understand that they probably gave their 100%, and they cannot do much more than that, right? Like they can't control the result. If they are giving their 100%, we it's our responsibility to be honest at 100% again to the player and to the sport, and keep talking about it in a positive manner.
You're absolutely right. And tennis, in that way, is a very tough sport because it does not give you a second chance. If you are in a tournament, you lose a match, you're gone. You have to
Right.
start from another tournament or wait for an entire year to be back in that particular tournament.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Vatsal, for speaking with us today, and really looking forward to speaking with you again. And good luck with ITD.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot for your time. Take care.